Hello and welcome to Comic Island. So, how's it going, guys? Most people really liked the first episode I put out of these vlogs, so I've decided to go ahead and do the next one. So we're back in my room. I've decided to just start showing off random nerd stuff I have because it's not a very exciting background. So this is my Wonder Woman pint glass. I got a few of these for my birthday a while back, actually. It was a lovely gift. So today we are going on with the Green Lantern, the animated series. This is going to be episode 3, also known as Razor's Edge. And don't worry, it's not going to be quite as long as the last video. The last one I had to introduce myself and explain what I'm doing. This one we're just going to go right into the episode. And I only have 1 page of notes as opposed to 3 because we're only covering 1 episode. So it should be a nice, shorter video. Hopefully shorter video. So what happens in this episode, it picks up where the last one left off. They have Razer as a prisoner, and they, especially Kilowog, really just want to get rid of him and be done with it. And so they go ahead and do that. They find the nearest prison, and it's this weird underground colony with little like spider people running it. They hand Razer over to custody. They kind of make a note of like there's these weird yellow crystals on the cave walls in the prison, but they're like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they leave. And then they notice something's on the ship, and it turns out to be this crazy one-eyed prisoner who's like tunneled out of the prison, and he says that they're being tortured in there, so Hal Jordan insists they go back and investigate. Sure enough, they go back and find that like they're basically torturing prisoners, forcing them to relive the same day over and over again. But their infiltration doesn't go very well, and they both get captured. In response, Aya goes in to investigate, and she can't get past the yellow crystals because she is made out of the energy from a Green Lantern, and the yellow crystals are repelling her. So she instead frees Razer and asks him to help out. He runs back to the ship, grabs his red power ring, and goes ahead and frees Hal Jordan and Kilowog, and together they all kind of escape, beat up the spider prisoner guards, and make the crazy one-eyed guy the temporary warden until a new one can be established. And that's pretty much it. Hal Jordan, kind of recognizes that Razer helped out a lot, so he goes ahead and like gives his ring back and lets him come along, and they're gonna try and like hopefully hunt down the rest of the Reds, and that's the end of the episode. So the first thing I noticed about it was I haven't really talked about the score yet. It's got a very like kind of basic orchestral like doo-doo-doo like a trumpet going off. It reminds me a lot of like some of the earlier Justice League cartoons, in particular the New Frontier, I think it's called. That movie, it kind of just reminds me of that, but that's not necessarily a good thing, just in a very like classic, unremarkable music. It kind of fits the show, but I've heard it all before, it's nothing really special. And yeah, Razer is obviously a big part of this story. The episode's named after him for good reason. Because Razor's living the same day, like his worst day over and over again, we do get a glimpse of his backstory a little bit here. I do like that on 2 fronts. First, I like the plot device itself. It's a really good way to introduce a character's backstory, even just by adding this whole other thing about like them going into like a matrix and a prison and stuff. It's actually a really smart way to show how people, or like what defines a character, what's their worst moment in their life. And it's not like, that's obviously not the sum of who they are necessarily, but it's a good way to learn a lot about them, especially early on in the show. So that was really clever. And it's a pretty compelling story, especially for a kid's show. Like I don't know if it's his wife, but his wife basically dies, and understandably, Razer gets all pissed, and it's how he becomes a Red Lantern, so we get to see that, and there is something touching about that, and surprising for a kid's show to go full throttle like that. I was really impressed. So someone mentioned in the comics for the last episode, and I haven't really talked about it yet, but there are changes in the Red Lanterns from the comics. In the comics, the Red Lanterns are a lot more mindless. The red rings themselves like basically purge them of their blood and replaces their heart with this like acidic blood, so you can't take off the red ring because you don't really have a heart anymore. You don't have blood. You'll just die horribly instantly if you quit the Red Lanterns. There is no quitting in the comics. In the TV series, it functions a lot more like a power ring. Razer takes it on and off this episode without any harm. Obviously that's done because this is a kids show. You can't put that kind of gore in a kids show like that. And it also, but like, it adds something though. The Red Lanterns in the comics are also mindless. And in the comics it kind of works because it separates them out from the other like the other Lantern Corps. So like they're a little different and distinct that way. In this one, they're coming out especially early on in the series, so they need to be more of like rivals to the Green Lanterns. So I get that you want to make them a little more similar, but it also allows for a character like Razer. For one thing, he has a brain, as opposed to the regular Red Lanterns before they kind of got more intelligent as they got their own series in the comics, a series that I really do like, by the way. Well, it's cancelled now, but I did enjoy Red Lanterns when it was running. And it's just a good choice overall. So other than that, I had forgotten about the existence of the Yellow Prison to begin with, but that was a really clever way to introduce the like Sinestro Corps, which is obviously what it's alluding to. You instantly recognize that's what it's supposed to be because it glows the same way as the construct, so even if people aren't familiar with the comics, they do recognize that it's gonna, like, it has significance, and it stops Aya, who's made of Green Lantern energy, so like it obviously has some sort of antagonistic effect with the Green Lantern energy. So it's just a really nice way to kind of drop that hint, and I like how they're starting it out that way. We all know where that story is going, so sometimes doing stuff like this can be a little tiring, but this worked. It worked really well because it's not the origin story we quite know, but we do know what's gonna, like, the direction it's going in, and that's good. Kind of, it's a good build up. I like that. And there are really dark themes in this episode. That's one thing I noticed. I mentioned it in the first two episodes, like my review for that they explore some pretty dark stuff when, like, they add these real stakes. In this one, they're just exploring some pretty dark ideas. Torture. There's one part where they find one of the beds that they put people on and they, like, send them to their worst memory. And there are, like, claw marks in the table of, like, the people who are trapped in these horrible memories trying to escape. That's dark, and I really like that. Like, that was a good detail, and like I said, like, kids can handle this. I don't, like, unless they're very young, and even then, like, it wasn't done in a violent or graphic way or a scary way. It's just, it's showing the reality of prison and how bad it can be if there aren't, like, someone to advocate for prisoner welfare and stuff. And I know that's a somewhat complicated lesson for Green Lantern, but that's kind of what they're hinting at. And on a basic level, that's what they're trying to show kids, that, like, not all prisoners are automatically bad. Not all prisoners need to just be punished. Some do, certainly, but there's options for rehabilitation. And that's what this episode was about. It was like Hal Jordan deciding, no, we're going to let Razer, like, earn his redemption, or, like, make up for what he's done instead of just rotting in a jail cell. And I think there's something really compelling about that message. It's not overt, it's not on the nose, but it is behind this episode, and I thought that was really great. Really impressive. And I forgot, like, she can be really awesome, and in some ways I kind of wish that they don't give her the robot body, which they'll do in a bit, but they do a really nice job with, like, showing what she can do, especially as a ship, and, like, going into the prison and hacking in and breaking Razer out and traveling around. And she's just great, where it's just like, when she realizes that the other, like, Kilowog and Hal Jordan aren't coming back, she's like, oh, unacceptable, and just goes and gets them herself, basically. And I think that was just such an excellent choice in storytelling. And the animation was getting better. They had a fight scene at the end that I really liked, where Razor's showing off his powers. I wish the constructs were a little more defined. It's just like a red goop of energy kind of being thrown around. I don't know if they did that specifically for the Reds to keep them distinct from the Greens, but even the Greens I've noticed, like, they don't have, I wish they had more form. It should look like a hammer when Kilowog makes a hammer, or like a real fighter jet, not just like a glowy energy thing. But it was much better, and, like, the action was much more telegraphed in, like, a more, like, realistic way with the action, and I thought that was really great. So overall, it was a really good episode. One that I enjoyed, kind of made me like, oh yeah, it'll be worth kind of going through this series. It shouldn't take that long, because I'm just going to start doing these as filler on kind of our off days when we don't have a whole video coming out. I just finished a really big script on another video, but there's no way I'll get that done today, so this is just a nice way to provide a little bit of content going forward and stuff like that. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Otherwise, and yep, other than that, be sure to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics, and I will see you all for episode 4.